Welcome to London Futurists. If you are looking for interesting information about the future, if you're looking for thought-provoking, well-thought-out information about the future, then you are in the right place, because today we have 9 different speakers who are each going to share, in my view, some very interesting and often provocative ideas about what's just around the corner and what may mean that businesses have to adjust what they're doing, risks and issues they need to think about, and also new opportunities for business. It's not just bad news ahead, there's lots of good news ahead. And the speakers who are lined up today are going to help us all to think through some of these scenarios. Speakers come from many different points of view, in many different speaking styles. My name is David Wood. As Chair of London Futurists, it'll be my turn later on today to have my few minutes in sharing my ideas about a key topic for the future. But today's event has actually been pulled together by Rohit Talwar, who's the CEO of Fast Future. And Rohit has been working with a team that he'll probably introduce to pull together not just this event, but the book that lies behind it. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce and welcome Rohit Talwar.
Thank you, David. Thank you for also giving us this event to talk about the book. So, this is a kind of mad project. We decided, Steve and I decided at the end of January, I put the idea to him to say, how about we do a book on the future of business? We invite a bunch of people to contribute from around the world, and we do it by June. He went, that sounds really stupid, let's do it. And so we went out to about 20 people, well, it's about 100 people we knew. We wanted about 20 chapters. We ended up with over 70 proposals. And we've ended up with 62 contributors who contributed between those 60 chapters, exploring how the future might play out. So the whole thing has been done in 19 weeks. When we talked to the publishing industry, they told us it would take 2 years. But what we knew was that if you have ideas today, and they're new and fresh, in 2 years' time, everyone will be talking about them, particularly in the futures community. So we had to bring exponential thinking to publishing and say, how do you do it 4 times as fast? The 62 contributors come from 21 different countries around the world. About a third of the contributors are women, which is fantastic. And you're going to hear some of the ideas today. The book covers a whole range of domains. So there are some big visions about the future and what are the technologies that will shape the future. We then have some people writing about how economic and political systems might change, how society itself might change, the technologies that could impact society, the technologies that could disrupt business, how business behaviour itself might change, the industries that might change and the industries that could emerge in the future, and then some pieces around tools and techniques for bringing the future into your organisation. So it fell quite neatly into about 10 sections. But we gave people no guidance about what to write about. The only thing we said was, you can't publish something that's already been written before. And we were amazed at the range of contributions. But just as a bit of fun for you guys, you can have a copy of the book today for free, an EPUB version of it if you tweet about the book. You can pay for it with a tweet. So if you go online and you mention the future of business and you use the hashtag FutureBiz, and then follow us. You have to follow us so we can send you your unique download code as a direct message. So mention future of business, #FutureBiz, follow us at FutureBiz, and we'll then send you a unique one-time download code. So it's not one you can then give to 1,000 of your friends as well. It will be unique to you, because people are trying that, and we're generous, but not that generous. So the authors, I'm not going to name them all, but a bunch of them are here. Who's going to talk? So I'm going to open up, just give you an overview. David's going to talk about the future of government and governance. Julian's going to talk about how 3D printing could transform construction. We've then got Callum Chase going to talk about whether AI will lead the world. Martin Dinov's going to talk to us about artificial neural networks and machine learning. Dean Budley's going to talk about the future of the phone call. James Buckley's going to talk about the future of marketing and the free expensive prerogative. David Worley's going to talk about wearable technologies and health. And then Andrew Vladimirov, who definitely has the best picture of anyone on our website, is going to talk to us about connecting our brains. A couple of other people I want to mention. One is April Corey, who's here. He's come away from Houston. Project. Done everything basically imaginable on the project. He's also a researcher for Fast Future. He's flown in from Houston to do this, to be with us today. Steve Wells, who all the authors know far too well because he's been chasing you, managing you, and leading the editing. Alberto, who wrote a chapter in the book, also I think slept for the last month in order to get the website up, to get the EPUB version up, but then had the audacity to say he wasn't going to turn up today if that was all right because he got 3 places at Singularity University. So you have to question his commitment, really, don't you? And then, who else is on there? That's it, really. And then there's a bunch of other authors who aren't going to be here today. And I mean, just a fascinating project in terms of human behaviour. There are some people who wrote their chapter before we even asked, before the submission date for proposals. There are some people who still haven't finished their chapter. Anish is here in the room. Anish also wins the award for the longest sentence in the book. It ran over 2.5 pages. It was incredible. Also, if anyone knows Anish, I think he's already ascended into the singularity. He's singularly incapable of responding to emails, but we love his ideas dearly. Okay, so I'm going to do a very quick canter through the ideas in the book. What do we see? The first thing we see is that there's this clash going on between two worlds, the physical and the digital. Organisations that were born physical, they were lawyers, they were construction companies, they made cars, they saw everything as something very physical. Technology was just an enabler and a cost centre. How you improve things was in a very analogue and incremental way. They're now clashing with a world that's born digital, that doesn't see cars or legal contracts or houses. What it sees is data. It sees that every problem can be solved by finding the right algorithm and applying the right technology to it. But most critically, that group have grown up with Moore's Law, this idea that technology, the power of computing doubles about every 18 to 24 months, and they're saying, why can't we bring that to business? And so they're looking at every sector and saying, how do we bring exponential thinking? And they're really challenging the existing sectors. And it's why someone like Facebook is now looking and saying, we have 1.5 billion people who we have way more contact with than the average bank. We could build a very different bank with it. We could take their data and we could actually help them buy travel products because we know more about their intentions. We could help them monetize their emails, monetize their network. We could suddenly be the bank that people really want, which is looking after your total asset base as a pool of value. You talk to Barclays, HSBC, or NatWest, and they look at you and say, what do you want? We take your money, we take most of it, we keep it, and then we give you a bit of it back. How is it you think that your idea could work? So we're seeing this in sector after sector. And then what that's driving is some real challenge for people. What's very clear in the book is two different views of how you get to the future. One is, we grew up with the people who are our competitors, we know how they do business, we know what we do. If they launch a strategy, we know why, we know what they're going to do next. And actually the way we get to the future is playing within a very narrowly defined rule set. Then you get people coming on from outside who say, actually, in order to succeed in your sector, I'm not going to play by your rules, I'm going to change the game. You look at what Skype did in telephony, all the telephone companies couldn't imagine giving away phone calls for free. Skype came along and that became their basic model. We give away your telephony for free, we make money on the back of that. Turn the industry on its head. 40% of all international telephone traffic now handled by Skype with 1,600 employees. BT have more than 1,600 in their call centres. We're in a very different world now. So we've got a choice about how we get to the future. Is it within the existing mindset, with an analogue way of thinking, or is it around, David, have we got a microphone? Because the lady says you can't hear at the back. I don't know what we can do. I can't shout, because I won't. But the best thing is to move forward if you can. Sorry. So, or do we have to change the game itself? Do we have to change from within and start to adopt a digital mindset and start to think exponentially? What we also know is the people who seem to do the best job of preparing for the future actually think about it in terms of 3 different time horizons. Firstly, they're very clear on what they're trying to bring into land in the next 12 months. Secondly, they're looking at what they're trying to deliver in the next 3 years, and they're looking at what could change in the world around us that could impact that strategy, but also that could change the strategy. And finally, they have that early warning system telling them about what's coming over the horizon 4 to 10 years away, so that they really are forearmed. And a lot of what's in the book is about that 4 to 20 year horizon, what people think might be coming next. We also see that there are these massive global challenges that affect everyone, whether it's global debt, whether it's climate change or the kind of existential risks that people believe we now face, whether it's with synthetic biology, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. So all of these are framing a debate for business. We're hearing Nick Bostrom say, actually, all of this could be largely irrelevant because we have no control over it. We're basically living in the matrix. We're living inside the digital simulation of a higher intelligence from another planet anyway, or we could be. And so that's kind of changed the game anyway. And none of us would know. If we were living in the matrix, just like Neo, we wouldn't know, and it would take a Morpheus to come and show us that actually we weren't. What we do know is that we're living in a digitized world. We're a digitized species, and even before artificial intelligence comes along, we know we're connected to this global brain, 3 billion of us tied together by the internet, that's becoming the backbone of everything we do, and will increasingly be weaved into the fabric of all of society. We also know that through the book, a whole range of truly disruptive technology developments were identified, from 3D and 4D printing to artificial intelligence to human augmentation to synthetic biology, things that are going to transform our understanding of every sector, create new sectors, create new jobs, destroy old jobs, reshape the industrial landscape over the next 20 years. All of this is creating some fundamental design challenges, if you like, some tensions for business about how we move to the future. The first is, how far do we go in this balance between human and machine? You know, we know the Oxford study that said 47% of all jobs that exist today will be automated out of existence within 20 years. You go to Silicon Valley and people there are saying, actually, we think it's about 80% within 10 to 15 years. Businesses have a choice now. You know, who is going to buy our goods and services if we've automated out of existence? Well, we need a guaranteed basic income. I know Karen's going to talk about this. Or do we make a conscious choice to employ people because we have a broader social role? We see that tension in every boardroom we work in. We see that tension playing out in conversations. The second is this kind of trade-off between the masculine and feminine. A lot of the dialogue today is about a very masculine, technologically centric, financially driven, hard view of business. It's all about the rules and execution, kind of masculine, if you like. On the other hand, people are saying, actually what makes a difference in a business are things like intuition, connection, network, well-being, and how we relate to each other. And we're seeing more and more organisations saying, how do we bring that back in? How do we tap into the feminine in our organisations, not just as individuals, but as an organisation? The next is this issue of, you know, do we just wait for the crowd to do it, and do we kind of go just in front of or just behind the crowd, you know, not shift to anything more dangerous, or do we follow our curiosity and go and play in spaces that others are dared to do? So, for example, in the US now, marijuana is legal, and you can grow it, you can sell it in a number of states. You've got executives leaving Microsoft to set up marijuana businesses, but the banks, the accountants, and the lawyers refuse to support them because they're saying this is outside our comfort zone. And so you're getting individuals leaving those organisations to set up service companies to support the marijuana industry. And you're getting this whole new edge ecosystem developing around the spaces where the core business is there on trend. We also know that financial services is being challenged and reinvented by a massive rate of change in terms of the rise of fintech ventures. This slide's out of date now, 1,027 companies. I believe it's somewhere closer to 2,000 fintech companies doing everything from commercial debt, raising equity, to personal loans, to invoice discounts. Everything that the banks and financial services companies did, you've now got players doing in a new way. I could go to Barclays and do a money transfer for £30, or I can go to one of the places like TransferWise and do it for a couple of pounds. Every business is now faced with that choice with, do I go with these new players who are cheaper, more open, but unknown, or do I stick with the tried, tested, and far more expensive old world? And it's a challenge facing every business. And then you have this kind of big choice, if you like, about why are we here? On the one hand, there are the businesses still pursuing the kind of winner-takes-almost-all view that says, you know, it's very Star Wars, we need to dominate the sector. You know, you look in search, the number 2 in search is a long way behind the number 1, and there's many industries like that. So, you know, there's a choice. Are we going for that? Are we going for that kind of total domination and control? Or are we actually thinking much more in a kind of Star Trek mindset, where if you think about the Federation in Star Trek, it's a world of abundance, it's a world of peace, the goal is the greatest possible good, and there's no money. And we're seeing businesses wrestle with that now. If you look at what's happening with 3D printing, driving down manufacturing costs, pink LED farms bringing the price of food to almost zero, the internet becoming a free distribution mechanism, we're seeing some enablers that could take us closer to a Star Trek type economy. And a number of businesses are really starting to explore, well, what would that look like? How would we run a business where we were making tiny profits but serving the greatest possible good? All of this is kind of underpinned by a massive kind of advance in technology. We all know that has been used to leverage people, processes, and innovation. The new one that we're going to hear various people talk about today is the role of artificial intelligence to create the hive mind in the organisation, to pool our knowledge and make new decisions in smarter ways. There's a massive range of technologies coming. The challenge for every organisation is to build your own picture of the technology timeline. And what is at least 60% of what's coming, so we can map a path through it and understand what are the technologies that could have an impact. We're never going to cover them all, but we'll have a sense of many of them. What we do know is that there is a natural evolution underneath this, going from the desktop to the portable, the luggable, the mobile, now the smartphone, which has transformed our lives since 2006. What's coming next? Well, we know in the last 3 to 5 years, people have been patenting and now bringing to market a range of wearable technologies. What comes next? Well, what's been patented in the last 3 years is a whole range of embedded devices. We already have millions of people with pacemakers, cochlear implants, ocular implants, already performing various bodily functions. In the next few years, we will see memory, GPS trackers, sensory enhancers all coming. And we know it's going to be connected to the Internet of Everything and a multi-sensory world. Last year, you could buy into the O-Phone on Kickstarter, where you could transmit up to 356 different smells. People are also working on touch and taste stimulation digitally. So within 3 to 5 years, we can expect to be tasting the food in the restaurant, smelling the bath products, and feeling the bed linens in a hotel, all as part of the booking process via our device. Fundamentally changing how the industry works. And then there's AI. I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but it's becoming very clear that it's already central to a lot of what we do, from search to using the mobile phone. And the rate of advance is phenomenal. Last week there was one of the guys saying he's bringing artificial general intelligence to bear in a world-building game system that's going to come out in the next few months. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. What we do know is people are already starting to use it. If you go to attorney.me on the web, you can capture your life story and everything about your life, and they use AI so that long after you die, your persona will continue to advise or piss off your friends and family, depending on your worldview. All this new knowledge that's being created is going to enable a number of sectors. We identified 30 in the book that we think will represent the bulk of the global economy in 15 years' time. There's a bunch in IT. By the way, if you want copies of the slides, we'll happily send out PDFs afterwards if everyone organise that. A second range around supporting the citizen and the domestic infrastructure. My favourites are the ones around human augmentation and body shops, so that we'll be able to go in and using CRISPR-Cas9 or something equivalent, edit our genes in the same way as we can go in and get a tattoo today. A lot around how we manufacture, how we build. A number around the societal infrastructure, from smart cities to new food and agriculture approaches. A range around the transformation of some big industry sectors, and then a number around energy and environment. So across those 30, we think these are kind of the core of the global economy in the next 20 years. All of this is driving new behaviours, new strategies, and new models. And we've classified these as a kind of choice between magic and mayhem, a bit like the dragon. You know, on the one hand, it's a magical, mythical creature. On the other hand, it wreaks havoc when it opens its mouth. And we see exactly the same with the business models. You know, on the one hand, there's the creation of magic. With more and more becoming commoditized and standardized in our world, how do you differentiate between what's going on? How do you stand out? How do you create the wow factor for your customers? This is an insurance company in Japan who recognized that one of the biggest risks you face with playing golf is that you get a hole-in-one. When you get a hole-in-one, it costs you about $5,000 in gifts for your friends. So now, with their app, if you're having a good day, you're striking the ball sweetly, you can get onto the app, and for $4, you can insure against getting a hole-in-one. Which is wonderful, because you're taking away a point of pain, or you're creating a moment of pleasure, but you're creating a wow factor that people will talk about, which helps your brand stand out. Secondly, people are experimenting with all sorts of business models about how we finance ourselves, how we finance innovation, and the way we charge for goods and services. My favourite has to be the auction model, because it's a license to print money. In this example here, this is madbid.com. I'm sure if you've ever looked in Metro or Evening Standard, you'll have seen their ads and wondered how they can sell a car for £1,000. Well, how it works is when you make a bid, the price goes up by 1 penny, but you pay a bidding fee of £1.50. So on the first one, we're selling a £630 TV. With 25 seconds to go in the auction, the winning bidder is pretty happy because they're paying £20.59. But as a vendor, I'm delirious because I've made £3,000, and it's not over yet. When I was selling this laptop for £614, 26 seconds to go, I've made nearly £9,000. But the one that makes you get out of bed in the morning, the one that convinces you that the teacher who told you were crap was wrong and that you were going to make money whatever you did, was this last one, where I'm selling money. Here I'm selling £125. 4 seconds into the auction, I've already made £81. Typically I'll sell this for between £10 and £50, which means they'll make a return of between £1,500 and £7,500 on a £125 outlay. People are beginning to think differently about how we charge for goods and services. As organisations, we have to give ourselves permission to just think in a different way. We're also seeing, I don't have to talk to this group about Bitcoin. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. The exciting bit about Bitcoin is blockchain, this highly secure protocol for communicating information. This is going to enable distributed accounting ledgers where everything will be transparent on the distributed net, and smart contracts that self-execute. That moves us to the idea of assets being able to identify themselves and objects that are no longer owned. So talking to car companies where actually what we could have is a car where no one owns it, a self-driving car, where all the people who come together to make that car take rent from it, but get no payment for the services up front. That car is then free to rent itself out 24 hours a day per driver, and basically manages its accounts via the blockchain with very transparent ledgers. And the profits are then distributed back to the people who contributed. But we completely eliminated the idea of ownership. If you try talking to UK tax regulators about how you deal with that, that's a kind of interesting one. Yeah, and then we kind of got the automation junkies who are saying actually we take that a step further. We can have the decentralized autonomous organizations. We could have businesses that are entirely written in software. From strategy through rules to operational procedures, they could be entirely software existing. And we could have companies that are basically technology platforms that plug together multiple ones of these. And you're starting to see platforms like Ethereum give you the basis on which to do that. We're also seeing the barbarians at the gate. In this world, people are saying, actually, given all this abundance, I'm going to try and take as much of it as I can and don't care about the underlying players. So you look at someone like Google. Google does home delivery in the US now. You order your home electronics, your home improvement, or your food stuff from them. Google buys it from Target, Walmart, and Home Depot. Its staff are in the store, they pick it up, they put it in the car, it delivers to you, but if you have a complaint, you go back to Google. Who do my kids have more loyalty to? Google, Facebook, and Apple, or Marks and Spencer's, Barclays, and Currys? Who do we talk to more regularly? What Google and some of these players understand is, if you put yourself between the customer and the marketplace, you can savage the underlying marketplace and take the lion's share. And how we respond to that is one of the biggest challenges for existing businesses. We're also seeing this kind of focus on rapid execution. How do we speed up in this world? This is a hotel group, construction group in China, building 30-story hotels in 15 days by prefabricating them and then plugging them together on site. And that is an example of this notion of bringing exponential thinking to bear in business. So you look at Airbnb, 90 times more bedrooms than the average hotel group per employee. Tangerine, 7 times more customers per employee. Local Motors, though, is a really interesting one. They can produce a new car design 1,000 times cheaper than a typical car company. Why? Because the average Ford has about 5,000 components. The average 3D printed Quirky has 50. Completely changes our whole thinking about how you design and manufacture in almost any industry. We're bringing that exponential thinking to bear. That's impacting valuations. You look at someone like Uber. Uber's valuation has gone up 20-fold in just 3 years. There is a massive commercial payback to the organisations that can bring this stuff to bear. And that gives us this, we have this idea of the non-owned enterprise. Clearly, when you think about what's coming with robots, AI manifestations, holograms, 5 to 10 years' time, the makeup of our workforce is going to be very, very different. We also know, what Grace Scott in the book talks about as this kind of simulated reality singularity, where with the automation of everything, the digitization of everything, we could be living in this mixed reality universe, where a lot of people would prefer to stay in the digital, but for most people, though, reality will be a mix of the two, and that will change a number of pieces of our world. In order to navigate all this, clearly we need the kind of intelligent assistant, and maybe the digital twin, who's managing our relationship with the world online on behalf of us. We also have the potential then, 10 to 15 years out, of uploading our brains to the web. More people can talk about that. The interesting thing comes is it just a backup? Or actually, given that information moves about 1 million times faster in silica than inside the brain, could we have that parallel brain doing work on our behalf? And then who resolves the argument between the brain working faster or our normal kind of human speed one? And who gets the decision about which one's right? All of this drives us to kind of think about a whole set of new skills we need to navigate that world, from collaboration to social intelligence. And all of it clearly raises the question, which Leonard pursues, which is about, just because technology can do all of this, should we let it? Or do we need a digital ethics treaty to actually determine how far we should go in all this? Gert and Gray are going to be in London with me on Tuesday night doing full keynotes of all this stuff, so you're welcome to come on that. We'll tell you afterwards about the details. So, conclusion really is organisations have to think about why we're here. They have to think about what kind of behaviours are going to be acceptable for us to pursue our mission. What is our orientation? Are we about control, or are we about creating abundance? How are we going to deal with talent in our organisation? Is it our most valuable resource, or is it going to be a kind of occasional presence? And are we a largely automated player? And then how do we deliver? What kind of technology, processes and structures do we need to deliver the kind of organisation we want to be? And how quickly will we need to update that for what we're moving into? That's it, that's my time, sorry. That's a kind of quick overview. We've got about a minute and a half on that clock to take some questions on the overview. And then I'm going to hand over to you. Sorry, that's like 576 pages summarised in 20 minutes, so if I've missed anyone's bit, then you have to rework. Any questions or comments?
How do you think the governments and the regulatory authorities with tax regimes and those kind of beasts relating to what you're talking about?
I think they're struggling, and I think they've got to rethink the governance models, and they've got to experiment, because there isn't one right answer, and David is going to talk to us a lot more about that in about 1.5 minutes. But yeah, I think governments have to kind of wake up to what's going on and changing.
Do you think that all these changes will influence the educational system?
Absolutely. Alberto Rizzoli in the book writes about how education will need to be revamped to create something that's much more learner-led and much more experiential, much more participative. That isn't just about technology, it's about technology underpinning, helping us ensure we have the skills we need. And I think it's not just kids, but adults. If we're going to live to 100 plus, we're going to need to work much longer. We're going to have multiple careers and jobs. And therefore, we're going to need skills like learning how to learn, scenario thinking, problem solving, collaboration, that are the underpinning for any job, that will enable us then an accelerated learning, which will then help us acquire the skills we need for a particular career going on. I think, but we're not there yet in any part of the system, so we have to kind of rework it.